Keisha Higgins leads the Yarrowkabra Charcoal Burners Association. This is the business she grew up on. It's what paid for her high school education, Teachers Training College CPC, and now her further tertiary education.
Because of this organization, I was able to go to school. I was able to write CXC. I was able to, even though I was a teacher and I was going to CPC, right? Well, because of the distance, I have to pay passage and all these things. This here was able to help me through. And I'm also attending university, and this is helping me.
The stories of the other women are similar. This charcoal business is what keeps their homes running.
This highway is a serious place when it comes to getting a job, right? Even if you do get a job, the distance that you have to travel and so is very uncomfortable, you know. And sometimes the expense of traveling, and so if they won't send no bus to you or so because of the distance. If you got 2 or 3 persons working with them on the highway, you would have to take your own transportation. The time would be one problem, and the traveling expenses, you know, because it makes sense to go in traveling and using half your salary, you know, back as traveling expenses. So this came in handy.
It means a lot to me as a woman, because the cost of living, even if you have a spouse, it isn't easy, it's challenging. So in order to give a brace, it really means a lot to me to see my children can be able to get certain stuff, and it means I am able to help them to get those stuff. So I'm truly happy that I can be a brace or a help to them.
The women of Yarrowkabra use the pit method to produce charcoal. The process involves digging a pit of various sizes, stacking the wood, carefully covering it, and burning on the conditions of restricted oxygen.
So what we do is put the fire inside. Then we need to throw some scraps.
Burning charcoal is a science, the women will tell you. If you get it wrong, you'll lose the entire pit. If the entry of air is not controlled during the carbonization process, wood could burn away to ashes, as in a conventional fire. So care has to be exercised to ensure the wood decomposes chemically to form charcoal.
They're very skillful people. I mean, the technique that they use is very ancient, and they seem to have mastered it.
Padmini Ragnod, a community development officer with the Guyana Forestry Commission, the state agency which develops and monitors standards for forest sector operations, has been working with the women of Yarrowkabra to improve their operations, to get it on the right footing to start with.
Yarrowkabra charcoal burners started as, they started burning charcoals illegally, right? And then we wanted to formalize their operations so that it can become legal.
The women are committed to taking their operations along the legal route, and it's why they've joined an association and lead it, even though men are also in the business.
For one thing, I can legally do my business without having to be afraid that maybe one day forestry will come and shut down the ground or stuff like that. So I'm happy that I'm in an association, really.
None of the women can say exactly when charcoal burning began in this area, but they have seen it change, presenting new challenges.
It's changed in different ways. For one thing, the waste materials that we would often have easily accessible. It's not so easily accessible. Sometimes we have to go way out the distance and stuff, transportation, the cost and all of that. It's really gotten a little harder.
It was only a few years ago that the women used the waste from sawmill operations in the area to burn charcoal, which the millers would simply dump. But now the wood is no longer dumped, but sold to the women. Overcoming this challenge, among others, is among the benefits the women see in being part of a registered body. At times, they pool their resources to ensure that their individual operations are a success.
So sometimes you may not get a chance to go and buy wood, but I may go, and sometimes what happens, a person may have a set of wood and they might just sell you. And so now you can come and say, okay, I got some wood, whoever, I'm gonna share with them, or, well, not if you pay for it, They're gonna they're going to refund you or so.
Charcoal produced in Guyana is used locally, and much of it is exported, about $60 million annually. The biggest market is Trinidad and Tobago, followed by the French West Indies, and then the British and US Virgin Islands. The Guyana Forestry Commission has recognized the efforts of the women of Yarrowkabra to ensure they comply with regulations, and further work is underway to secure the land on which they operate.
So currently they don't have legal rights to use this piece of land that they're burning on. So we've been working with various agencies to help them acquire legal rights. Only recently we've been talking to Lands and Surveys, meeting with them so that they can at least get a lease for this area and continue their business.
The Yarrowkabra Charcoal Burners Association is among a few women-led organizations involved in forestry in Guyana. A small and informal gender and forests group with funding from the Food and Agricultural Organization's Guyana office has been looking at ways in which the relationship between gender and forests can be documented and analyzed, and this data they hope can lead to support for women-led organizations. Lawrence Lachman Singh was one of those conducting the research.
Women have this ability to think in a business-like way, and I think one of the findings was that there's potential for increased initiatives that support women at the community level to do livelihoods-related stuff. It may not be related to a tree, but it's related to the forest. So I think that's encouraging in terms of how we can reduce poverty in communities that are dependent on forests whilst sustaining the forests.
While they pursue legal title to the land on which they operate, the women of Yarrowkabra are already thinking of how they can access funding to develop their operations and ways in which they could diversify those operations, developing products from the charcoal they produce.
You know, Neil, we are called the Cooperative Republic of Guyana for a very good reason. We're very small and individually we can't make it, but the moment we start to come together, we develop efficiencies, economies of scale, we share resources, we share talents, and by doing that, that's how you actually grow an enterprise. And if Guyana were to be thought of as an enterprise, then these small operators can actually model for us what it means to cooperate at an economic level. We've seen it already being quite successful with fisheries, for example, where fishermen come together and they share the cost of nets or they share the cost of ice-making facilities. We're looking, I think, if I were to visualize where these women are going to go, it's cooperative relationships where they share the work and they share the benefits.
For the newsroom, I'm Neil Marks reporting.